Good day, students. My name is Sydney Ase Emmanuel, and I'm here to discuss building technology with the theme, building, and the topic, simple blueprint reading. Simple blueprint reading. Now, at the end of this lecture, we want to ensure that you, the students, you are able to interpret the blueprint and also identify important components on the blueprint of a simple domestic building. Now, first, we need to know what this blueprint is all about. What is a blueprint? A blueprint is a final design, a final building drawing designed by the architect and then interpreted by the builder, on ground. Every building requires a blueprint, which can also be called a working drawing or a building plan. Now, this blueprint is a plan that guides the construction of the building. It serves as a communication, or it serves as a means to communicate the design of the building to the builder. Now, in interpreting a blueprint, two people are important. We're going to consider two very important people while interpreting a blueprint. The first is the architect, who is responsible for the design of the blueprint. And then we have the builder that interprets the blueprint by representing it exactly on the site, or you can say the land. Now, the first thing we should consider in buildings is the blueprint, which can also be called the building plan, without which a building cannot be properly erected. Now, the blueprint is designed in such a way that the builder is able to interpret and represent it on site. Take note, the builder must be able to interpret the blueprint and then transfer it from paper to ground. Now, this is a typical example of a simple building drawing. This is just the floor plan. This is not the entire blueprint. This is just the floor plan. Now, let's move on. Now, these are some components that we are bound to see in the blueprint. Not all, but some. Now, in a blueprint, we are meant to see the floor plan. This is a typical example of a simple floor plan. Now, in the floor plan, we have like the walls here. We have the door. We have the window. We also have some spaces like the sitting room, the bedroom, the toilet, kitchen, and so on. All these form the floor plan. And then we move on to the section. In a blueprint, we can also find the section. Now, the section of a building is when you cut through a building. Now, this is a building, and then you cut through this building. What you see on this other side is what is known as the section. So that's a typical example of a section. Now, in a section, there are some key things that we should take note of. We can see the foundation. We can also see the roof components of that building. And then we also have the side view. Can have one or two side views. And then we have the front elevation and, of course, the rear elevation. So these are some components that we are meant to see in the blueprint. So let's move on to discuss lines. Now, every line that is drawn in the blueprint represents something. In the design, we don't just draw lines like that. Every line represents something. It means something. It stands for something. So let's move on to identify some of these lines that are used in the blueprints. Okay? Now, whenever you see a line like that, it is used for projection. So you take note of that. And then if you see a line like that, dashes, okay, dots like that, these kind of lines are used for hidden details. And then if you see a line like that, I can redraw this one like this, that, and so on. If you see a line like that, these kind of lines are used for center lines and also path lines that indicate movement. And then if you see a thick line like this kind of line is used for outline or border. And then if you see a line like that with two arrows, okay, one here and one this way, these kind of lines are used to cut through a section, okay, a cutting plane. These lines are used to cut through sections of the building. So those are some of the lines that are used in blueprints. Now, in a blueprint, there are some other symbols that are used. We are going to be able to identify these symbols, what they represent in the blueprint. Okay? Now, these are some symbols that are used to represent some components in the blueprint. Okay? Now, we have this symbol here, which is used, okay, to represent the toilet seater. Okay? Toilet seater. Okay, we have this that represents the sink. We also have this for wash hand basin. We also have this fluorescent bulb. Okay, this represents the filament bulbs, the smaller size of bulbs. This represents the sockets. This represents a switch. This represents electricity meter. This symbol here represents the window. And then this symbol here represents the door. Okay? There are some other symbols like this. Represents earth. Now, some of these symbols, you mostly find them in the section of a building, when you cut through the section of a building. So that symbol there represents earth. Okay? This symbol here represents foundation. The foundation of the building. This symbol here is used to represent the hardcore feelings. Hardcore. This symbol here is also used to represent concrete feelings. Concrete. And then this symbol here is used for stonework. Stonework. And then this symbol here is used for brickwork. Brickwork. This one here is used for block work. Block. And then this symbol here is used for timber. Wood. And then this symbol here is used for bath in our bathrooms. Okay, so these are some of the symbols that are used in the blueprint to represent certain components in the blueprint. Okay, so in summary, what have we discussed today? What have we learned today? We have said that the first thing every building needs is the blueprint. Don't forget that. You can also call it a building plan, or you can also call it the working drawing. All right? And we've also said that the blueprint guides the construction of the building. Construction of the building. And also we've discussed that the architects design the blueprint. And we've also said that the builders interpret the blueprint by representing it exactly on the site. We also discussed about lines. We said that the lines drawn in a blueprint have different meanings. Each of the lines that are drawn in a blueprint, they have different meanings, what they represent. So we don't just draw lines like that. Any line you draw has a meaning and what it represents. And we also looked at some symbols that are used by the architect to represent certain components of the building. Now, let's see if we can answer this simple question. The question is, which of these is not a component of a simple domestic building? I'll take it again. Which of these is not a component of a simple domestic building? We have options: A, door; B, blueprint; C, window; D, foundation; and then E, concrete floor. Let's take a minute to see if you can answer this simple question. Okay? If you had chosen A, you would have been wrong, because the door is a component of a simple domestic building. If you had chosen C, you would have been wrong as well. Why? Because the window is also a component of a simple domestic building. If you had said foundation, you would have been wrong, because it is also a component of a simple domestic building. And of course, if you had said concrete floor, you also would have been wrong, because it is also a component of a simple domestic building. The correct answer here is B, blueprint. Blueprint is not supposed to be in this family. These are all components of the building, but the blueprint itself is where we can find all these components of a simple domestic building. Remember, we said the blueprint is the final design that the builder interprets directly on ground. Thank you very much for joining us in this class. Hope to see you some other time.